Well, welcome to another episode of the Grazing Sheep Podcast. I'm your host, Big Tom Perkins, along with Dr. Cameron Meyerly. And we just finished up our pasture walk just several nights ago. That was a pretty good turnout. We had probably 35 people there.
Decent weather. Did you guys bake out in the field?
Now, when I first proposed this, they asked me when I'd like to do it, and I said July. That way it'd be miserable hot and everybody would just be just feeling peaked from it being so miserable.
Right.
And I was joking. And several days before, it was in the mid 90s and the humidity was high. And I'm like, holy crap, I was only teasing. We ended up with probably mid 70s when we started, and a nice breeze, and the humidity was real low. And by the time people left, it was pretty well dark. A lot of people hung around afterwards and talked. And I would say it was might have just been the high 60s. It was with that breeze, it was a little bit on the chilly side, so it was really, really nice.
That sounds beautiful. I know when we got back from Cookville, weather was probably worse here than it was down in Tennessee, and
Yeah.
not real fun to be out moving fence and running sheep around. Not terribly enjoyable. So
Yeah.
so I'm I am enjoying, the 70, 80-degree days. Now, I mean, it was like you said, I had to put a sweatshirt on to go out and work last night after the sunset. And um yeah, it was chilly, but I'm not gonna complain. So awesome. So good turnout. I, from a list of events within the pasture walk, what did you guys focus on to talk about and really look at?
Well, we had several reps here, we had somebody from NRCS and somebody from Pennsylvania Grass Coalition, I think it is. So they all spoke a little bit. Leon Galen was here from Universal Feeders. So he got to give a little pitch on his feeders. And we also had an Advantage feeder set up too. And so we kind of looked at the pros and cons of both of those. And then we walked out to the pasture, just right outside the yard. So nobody had to walk far at all. And mostly what I did was fencing demonstrations on how we set up our temporary fencing. And I was pretty shocked at how many people. I was a little worried that I was going to do this and everybody's going to say, yeah, 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 that's how we do it. And everybody knows this. And I was pretty amazed how many people actually like, wait, can you show me how you're wrapping that? And how do you brace that post again? And so it seemed, well received. That we probably spent an hour and 15 minutes just talking about that kind of stuff. And a lot of people here were absolutely shocked that we were keeping sheep in with two wires, and the tallest wire is below your knee. Um,
Mm,
they were just shocked at that. And then when we set up a bit of netting and showed how we train the sheep to that single wire, and it made people were pretty amazed at that. And then we had our county conservation district brought out their soil probe, for taking soil samples, and
cool.
people were interested in that. And then they had I think it's called a penetrometer, where you,
Yep.
where you push down into the soil. And so I had three examples there. One was my yard where I'd taken a spot there and I mowed it as short as I could, at least once a week, and that was my to represent my continuous grazing there.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
we got a half inch of rain the night before, which I was grateful to have the rain, but I'm like, oh, you messed up my whole demonstration, because the day before you
Right.
couldn't you couldn't get that penetrometer more than about a half inch to an inch into the ground before it maxed out up into the yellow, which was like 200 pounds of pressure or something like that. And now you could get it down about an inch and a half or 2 inches, but before it would barely go in. And then we just stepped across the fence there into a pasture. and you could put that in, 6, 8 inches pretty easy. And then underneath the fence itself, of course, nothing's, has stepped on there at all. And any of these old fence rows, if you can go and dig that soil up just to look at the structure of that soil, that's what you're really striving for. That penetrometer, we could put it a foot and a half in the ground.
Just buried it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with like no effort whatsoever. And then we just got some step-in posts, just so you could feel the difference putting those posts in. And I also had a whole, I don't know, I must have had 8 or 10 different posts, fence posts that I've used through the years. Even my homemade step-in posts that I started with those rebar type of posts, and I had bent them into basically, for lack of a better term, two, I guess like two right angles, um, so that I could use part of that as a step in. And people thought that was pretty ingenious. I thought this was something, everybody had done. So
Yeah.
it was an interesting discussion and all that. And there was quite a few people here that listened to the podcast. I was pleasantly surprised with that. So I thought that was
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, the penetrometer stuff I think is interesting, and that's a great example. Like you said, those fence rows
hmm
are part of that pasture environment as well, and really a key and a clue into to what we are striving for from a compaction standpoint, from that soil structure standpoint. Did you have, well, you were only in the pasture right outside of uh, the house there, but I was gonna ask, those areas that you used to have cattle on and had really pugged up some pastures that you had not used as a sacrifice, but uh, during those during those times of maybe some wetter climate,
Yep.
those cows were out there. Have you ever used that penetrometer there versus where you've been grazing the sheep almost exclusively,
Yeah, we
just to
did.
see?
Yeah, we did this spring to see how much more compaction there was in those areas. And there was a notable difference, but it was so wet when we had done it here.
Ah, right.
I mean, just walking, you could almost leave a track. I was so grateful I didn't have cows on the farm in the spring, but um yeah, what we did do with that penetrometer was we went over to the neighbor's ground where they've been no-tilling there for the last, I don't know, 20, 25 years. And we took readings in my pasture, and then we stepped over the fence and went into that no-till field. And there was a huge difference between my pasture and the no-till field. There was way more compaction in that no-till field. And you could see on that ground, um, just the contour of that ground where he's been driving, because he drives the same track every year. And there's
Hmm.
a huge difference between where the tractor went and the planter went, because the tractor, the planter, and the combine all run in the same tracks. And you could really see, you could just see it in the ground. And then when we used that penetrometer, it was so much harder in the wheel tracks. And I found that part just to be amazing. And I forget how deep we could go before we hit that 200 mark, but it was definitely significant. But even with so when I had them do just with we use the Gallagher step-in post. With the people that did that, I said just try to push it in by hand first, and then just feel how much harder you have to do with your foot. And so we did that in the yard, and then just walked around the end of the fence into that first pasture, and there was a notable difference. And I said, now go push it in just by hand underneath the fence rows. And I was shocked that you could push that post in clear past the step in part just with your hand.
Wow.
It would go in that far. And that fence has been
Yeah.
in maybe 20, 25 years. That
Not forever. I mean,
no,
it's
no, that floored me. I did not think it would go. I knew it would go in easy because we've stuck posts right there by the fence, you can't tie poly wire to it and pull on it because the post just pulls right out of the ground. It'll just fall
Pulled
over.
right out of the ground.
Yeah, it
Nice.
just falls over.
Yep.
So we always use the plastic post. If we need to do that, then we'll use a plastic post and we kind of weave it up through the wires of the of that perimeter fence so that when you pull, you're pulling actually against the wires because it won't stay on the ground. It'll literally just fall over. But I found that I was shocked that the step in post would you could push them in past the step in, and everybody else was too. So it was a pretty cool to talk about, and lots of people asked questions, and so we gave there was plenty of opportunity to do some hands on demonstrations, and so I think it was a overall good evening.
Yeah. What was their thought on the grass mix you have out there? Do you guys do any like plant speciation or mostly
Now,
just the fence demo?
we didn't really go into any of that. CJ was there as well. And I had probably 7 or 8 people, comment, "Man, there's a lot of grass here." And CJ heard the same thing, and we always hear that. And of course, quite a few people were like, coming up the driveway, we thought this was all dead grass, and then we get out here in the pasture, and because you just see the tops, and from a distance,
Right.
looks like all this dead brown grass, and everybody's thinking, "Man, you really missed your opportunity to graze all this off." But you get out in the pasture, and it's like there's not near as much brown dead stuff as you think there is. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
just nice, lush green grass everywhere. And that little shot, a half inch of rain that we got, things really greened up, and I swear my grass grew 2 inches after that shot of rain. And then people were all interested in the first 3 fields that we were in right there. You know, how long it had been since we grazed that. And I was shocked at the one. I was like, "Oh, 8 days ago," and they're like, "8 days ago, and you have this much regrowth," and it was interesting to see that.
Yeah, that timely rain is critical.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think a lot of times it's less the quantity and more the timing on getting that. Now, I would take as much quantity. I should be careful what we wish for, but I would take as much quantity as we could get right now. We got a little bit of rain this past week, and it's very frustrating. Where we live in Ohio, it's like it'll come across the middle of the state that splits north and south by Route 70, and I mean, it's hit or miss. It's
yeah.
either going north of you or going south of you. I mean, I stood out there the one day and watched rainfall. Oh, I don't even know what a good metric of distance it would be, but I could see the sheets of rain 2 fields over on a crop field. And we have some elevation here, so it's not like it was 100 yards away, but um it was further than that. And it's like, man, that would have been nice. And like had all the wind and uh from that storm cell that was moving through, but it's like, oh man, just come over here a little bit closer. So
Oh, I know,
so it's
I
it's
know.
hard to
We
watch that stuff.
we've seen that as well. We watch these big fronts come across, and it is 2 or 3 states long, and it gets to us, and it just goes right around us. It just breaks up, and it's like, how does that
Yeah,
really happen? I think there's
I
pockets of
know.
the United States that this happens quite often. I don't know what the deal is, but I know in 2001 or 2002 we had a massive drought here just in this valley, and I was farming a farm on top of the hill, and I was up there baling hay, and skies just opened up, and I unhooked the wagon, and I made a beeline for back to the barn and put machinery away, and I come flying up the driveway, and the hay crew's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "It's pouring down rain up there." It was not a drop down here. They thought I was nuts. And we went up to get
That's
we
funny.
went we went up to get that last wagon, and all the bales were wet. They were sitting on the top of it, and they're like, "Holy cats, how could it rain here and not there?" And
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the back of both those farms meet together, but there's quite an elevation change there. But yeah, it was just kind of crazy.
Awesome. Well, it's good to hear that you had a good turnout. It's fun to know that get some listeners hop over
Yeah.
and visit. It's always interesting to me. It it's something that people aren't going to do because they're there visiting your farm. But I would always like to know feedback, like what's both positive and negative. Like they came, they made the trip over, they looked at everything on the pasture side, and it's like, well, what'd you think? Like, you saw some sheep. What'd you think of the sheep? Nobody's gonna sit there, especially if this is the first time they've been to your farm, and say, well, they're nice sheep, but I would, you know, X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z, just my preference. Nobody's gonna do that. But those are the types of discussions that I think are enjoyable to have. I think it's fun to highlight just the differences in opinion. I know we kind of touched on it the last episode, talking with Daniel Alry on um, just preference in type of sheep that people choose to raise.
Yep.
And Daniel's got an eye for, his eye for what he likes to look at and what his breeding objectives are different than what mine are. They're different than what yours are, and mine are going to be different from what yours are. And so I really enjoy having those conversations. And I don't have to sit here and say, well, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Like that's not the goal. I just like to hear, what everybody else is pursuing, and you can kind of pick up on a couple things. I know I was taking pictures for um our online sale, and there was one sheep that just phenotypically, I would argue, is probably the best ram lamb we've put together. Um, and I mean, has just some shapeliness, and that also is coming off of that talk that Dr. Greiner had. And it's like, man, this is if I'd never had to look at the performance side of this, and what I just it's fun. It's fun to go out and look at sheep. Fun thing is we're still putting performance into them, and we can select for the phenotypic side of the coin as well. Uh, but yeah, I wish people would be willing to offer feedback. Maybe not the first time they're there, but maybe if they come back and they're a regular, then it's like, what'd you think? What can we add into this to make it beneficial to keep you coming back? But that's the exciting thing is you hosted one of these last year, maybe it was
Huge.
the year before that,
Yeah.
2 years ago. Okay. And you did stuff that was completely different from this. Like it's something that, yeah, you're going to the same location, but the education is very different than because what you just talked about was nothing that we had done 2 years ago, which is
Yeah. 2 years
which
ago,
is
it was
fun.
more, yeah, it was more about soil health, soil biology. We dug a few pits and which killed me. It's like I want
Right.
to disturb the
Right.
soil, but no, yeah, we took the little mini excavator out and dug a couple of pits so you could see the soil structure in different places, and some of that was places we had pastured for quite a while, and then others that came into that rotation later on. And it was fun to see too the difference between the strip mine ground and what hadn't been strip mined, and the anaerobic layers that were in some of that strip mine ground where the roots just hadn't been able to penetrate yet, and how that soil was so clumped up together and kind of had a bit of an orange color to it, and
Hmm.
those black layers in there. So all that was it was definitely interesting, but yeah, I wanted to do something different. What I didn't do, and people had commented on before, was they were disappointed in the last pasture walk that they didn't actually get to see the sheep, and uh, and I'll probably hear that again
Hmm.
because we didn't get to see sheep this time either. The sheep were
Were
just
they
from
clear up on the field?
the way the rotation worked out. The one group of lambs, they were over a little knoll. You could hear the dog bark, but you couldn't see the sheep. And people were like, "Why's that dog barking? Is that a livestock guardian dog?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's what that is. Why is it carrying on?" That's, "Oh, it's probably a Sasquatch over there." You know,
Right. Yep, most definitely.
But nobody, wanted to run quickly over to see them. So I think they just took my word for it. So
Yeah, yeah, nice. Yeah, and so you got some sheep in the barn now for your winter breeding group. They're gonna goal is for those to lamb in December.
yep.
And how many do you have in that group? And this is replacing your fall lambing group.
Yeah. Yeah. We opted to not have a fall lambing group this time around. Because we're gonna try to do a winter group, an early spring, a late spring, and see if we can make that work. Um,
Yeah,
see if we can time that out. And if we can time that out and it goes well, then we're gonna add a fall group. So,
right,
we're trying
right.
to land 4 times a year, but there's 38, I think, in that group down there now. Um, and it has gone surprisingly well. So
Good.
we started cedering. Oh, I should have had these dates together. I think we started cedering the last couple of days of June, and the idea was that when we pulled cedars, we were going to pull those cedars. The cedars would be in for 10 days, and
Mm,
so we had 3 pens of sheep down there to be bred to 3 different rams, and we put 3 cedars. We cedered 3 different ewes in each group, so in each different pen. So every day, so the first day we did 9 cedars, and
yep,
we skipped a day, and then we did 9 cedars. Then we skipped a day, did 9 cedars, and then we skipped a day, and we did 3 cedars in the first pen, and I think it was 3 cedars in the second pen, and then the third pen only had 2 more ewes to breed in it, so we only did 2 cedars, and then skipped another day, and then it was the first pen had 3 more that were to be cedered, and we every time we cedered them, we took all that livestock paint and painted all the first ones we did had a 1 on them, all the other ones had a 2 on them. That way we didn't have to run through and find the ear tags and all that. We could just grab those sheep and pull the cedars.
yep. And so those were you were putting cedars in at we'll say 4 different time points, and you were also planning to pull at 4 different time points.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
everybody had the cedar in for
10
10
days.
days.
Yep.
Okay. So
Except
yeah.
for
eh,
we had 3 ewes, no 2 ewes, I guess it was, that showed up without cedars when we went to pull them.
Really? Okay, so they lost them.
So one of them lost one. Well, so 2 of them lost one. Um,
Yep.
but the one, so we have marking harnesses on our rams, and the one had already been bred. So we don't know what happened with that, but she's been marked. So we're assuming she just naturally came into heat. Um, I don't know when she lost the cedar. And we had another one that lost the cedar. And I probably should have just went ahead and put a cedar back in her because we would have had enough days, but I didn't think that far enough ahead. Um, but she's never been marked.
Mm,
She's not been marked at all, so we don't think she's going to be bred. And then I've got an older not I shouldn't say older. It's a she's never lambed, and so
mm,
she should have been called in the last group. Um, but she was part of that fall group that I had so much trouble with, so I kind of gave her the benefit of the doubt and let her go.
right.
So she was cedered, pulled the cedar, given the shot of PG 600, and she's still not been marked. So she's a nice
Okay.
fat, she's a nice fat ewe. So she's going to end up for freezer camp, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so on the 2 ewes that lost their cedar, you had the Rams running in the pen with everybody, correct?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's why to offer a little bit of backstory on how that happens. So the one you lost her cedar and it apparently was in long enough during that 10-day period that triggered that onset of standing heat and she got bred before the 10-day cedar poll.
Yep.
Who knows on the other one what that situation was, but yeah, this was not a I knew a little bit of the backstory on that, so I wanted to at least highlight. There's, nothing wrong with putting those Rams in there. You do have the potential of what you just mentioned. So your schedule of putting cedars in and then wait 10 days, you're gonna have one ewe that lambs earlier, but I think that's probably better than lambing later
Yeah.
because you put the ram in when you pull the cedars for the first time. So, have you pulled all your cedars yet? And is everybody marked
Yeah. So we pulled
other
all the
than the one fat ewe?
Yep, all the cedars have been pulled. I think we did that 3 days ago. Yeah, it'd be 3 days ago now. We pulled our last cedars, gave the shots of the PG 600. Everybody is marked except for the one fat ewe. I guess I should take it back. There was three ewes that no, so there's two ewes. So one ewe had lost her cedar. She's not been marked at all. So my guess is,
Yep.
she's going to be open. The fat ewe, we pulled that cedar, gave her the shot of the PG 600. She still has not been marked. So something's going on in there. She's just never going to have a lamb. Um,
Yeah.
but the one that the cedar was lost, we'll move her into the next group. Um, she was in that first group. I had time. I should have reseeded her. That's what I should have done, I guess. And she probably would. Everything probably would have been okay. So we're thinking out of that 38, there should be 36 that were covered.
Perfect. And are you planning on exposing them to a recycle?
No, just the one,
Okay.
just that one heat cycle. The Rams are still in with them. That's just kind of out of convenience right now. It's just easier to feed. We want to clean those ram pens out before we put rams back in. But
Mm,
probably in the next few days, those rams will go back in their regular pens and all that fun stuff. And the PG 600, we did 2.5 to 3 cc's. We were
okay.
we're aiming for 2.5, but there were some that I'm sure were 3.
Yeah. When did you buy your PG 600?
I had ordered my PG 600 probably 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago.
Okay.
Because I have figured out that if you need something at a specific time of year, you had better order it 3 or 4 months ahead of time because everybody else is going to order it at the same time. I,
Yep.
I've seen on PG or on Facebook that I could probably sell my PG 600 for twice what I paid for it.
For decent money. Yep.
For decent
Yep.
money.
That's why I was asking.
Because no, everybody and their brother's like, it's back ordered everywhere. And
Yep.
I even went and opened the refrigerator up and looked. And like, did I really buy this, or did I just think about buying it? No, I actually
Yeah.
have.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
crayons for marking harnesses. I always buy those early. The cedars themselves, I always try to buy those early, and the PG 600. Even the CD&T, I try to have a bunch of that on hand because that can, at times, that can come up the same thing. Everybody's wanting to vaccinate at the same time, so everybody orders it, and then everybody's out of it. So
Yeah,
if
and I don't know for sure on the manufacturing side of things, like how that all plays into the PG 600 deal or I know there was a time when I think it was penicillin was on back order for forever. And I was told that was a labeling. They had to fix something on the label, and so they had to go back and do it. That to
uh,
me, that can stay behind the curtain, and I don't need to know about it.
yeah,
But taking those steps to be prepared and not worry about it the day before you need it, I think are it's something that a lot of us can improve on. But so you had three different groups.
yep,
So you're expecting to see, and you skipped a day in between.
yep,
That 3 U per ram ratio, I think is great. We've talked about that. A lot of other individuals on a planned breeding schedule, like a hand breeding schedule, is what I'd consider this, where we're controlling who's coming into heat. How many ewes is the ram going to have an opportunity to breed? we're looking at 9 ewes per day, skip a day in between, let that ram rest. What are you seeing for uh marking times after pulling that cedar?
Anywhere from, I'm telling you, 20 minutes, 15 minutes to 24 hours. From the time we pull the cedar, get
Okay.
it caught. I swear some of those we probably didn't need to give the PG 600s because I'm sure it doesn't act that fast.
Mm.
Yeah, we literally pull that cedar and we're going to the next pen, and I'm looking over and that ram's already mounting that one of those that we just pulled. And that's happened before. And everybody says, "Oh, it takes a good 24 to 48 hours. They'll come into heat." And I don't know. Maybe they were just going to come in heat anyhow, and we didn't even need to use the cedars. But I think it's important to point out that we're using the cedars and the PG 600 to bring these ewes into estrus at a time where it's a little harder for them to come into heat. So when we do this for our early spring and our late spring group, we're not using cedars at all. It's only our fall and our winter that we're
And
using.
when was your first cedar pull day? Like
Uh,
July 7th?
I think so. Yeah, yeah, like
Okay.
July 8th, right in there. Should have had all this information laid out. It's on the
No,
barn.
no, you're good.
It's on the
Yeah.
barn
And
calendar.
from
You know?
a Yep, that's perfect. And that is something like early July, late July, I'm probably not messing around with the cedars, the added expense, because I know we can get
Right.
sheep to cycle that time of year. That late June, early July, it can be a little more challenging. It would be interesting. I know it would affect your labor directly, but and the time you're going to spend and the size of group you're going to get. But it'd be interesting to have a kind of a control group in there. If you had 38 ewes you were exposing with the cedars, to have like another 12 ewes
Hmm.
that you just put in and see if they would naturally cover and where those fell during your seeded
Yep.
individuals, because then it's like, here's the added expense to try to show some of those labor savings from getting that group on the ground and keeping the timing tight.
Yep.
um that would have been kind of interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, I used cedars last year for our March lambing group. We
Hmm.
put cedars in September and pulled in October,
Because
and
because
most people.
you wanted a tight lambing window is what you wanted.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. It
I
was
and I
it
talk to
was
people quite regularly that do that.
yeah.
It isn't they're not doing it to bring them into heat. They want to have lambing over in a week.
Yep.
That's why they do it. And that makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. My and the gal that I talked to that did this on a regular basis, she said that yeah, that week I don't get much sleep because I'm up every couple hours checking on lambs. I check mine at 9 o'clock at night, and then I don't see them again until 6 o'clock the next morning. And I don't know. I don't want to have sheep that I got to get up every 2 hours and go check on them.
Yeah.
If they
And
can't
the
lamb on their own and take care of those lambs, then they don't need to be here.
yeah, and the only reason that is certainly a freeing mindset, and I think that's something a lot of us can learn from. The only reason I'm checking cameras at night is to see if I end up with piles of lambs,
Yes.
trying to keep that parentage straight.
Yeah.
And for me, like, we have the cameras in the barn, it pulls up on my phone. And so, like, I could be sitting on the couch, pull it up. If I've got multiple ewes lambing kind of in the same vicinity, I'll run up and throw them into a jug to try to keep that data accurate. But um
And I did run it.
that's something you ran into that issue.
Oh yeah. Yeah, quite a bit this spring. I've never had it happen as much as it happened this year. It was
Just
insane.
piles of lambs.
Just piles of lambs. I'm like, how do you all lay them in the same spot? And who belongs to who? And
Right.
and most of them I
Right.
use are so maternal, they'll take anybody's lamb.
Yep.
It was there was a bunch we just don't know what's what. But
Which is a good problem to have.
it is. It's aggravating, but yeah, it's a good problem to have. Uh,
Yep.
only
That maternal instinct is a good problem to have.
yeah, there was only one instance where I really, really wanted to know who was who. And so we'll have to do some DNA on those to figure that one out. But the other ones, I was like, well, you're on the chopping block anyhow, so you're going for the epic. I
Right.
don't really care who raises who here, but yeah, the others,
Yeah.
know, it was
So
aggravating.
on your breeding scheme for these December lambs,
Mm.
what kind of went through, I guess, talk us through the process of how you selected rams for that group. You used two Katahdins and then a terminal sire, correct?
So I anything that was in my lower third went to Sam the Suffolk Ram, and then because Curtis is getting older all the time. I always feel like any opportunity I have to create a Curtis daughter, I need to do it. And so he ended up with about 13 or 14 ewes. I guess I could use him on. And then we used that 205 is very high in parasite resistance and pretty decent post weaning weight. We're using that ram a good bit anywhere we can. And so that was our third choice to use. And so that was
Mm,
pretty much how I laid that out. Um, and like I said, Sam the Suffolk Ram, he's a new addition. We were a little worried whether or not he would be interested, but oh, he did a wonderful job. So,
nice.
and
Nice. That's on the list for Center of the Nation sale to just kind of do some window shopping on some Suffolk Rams. There's certainly a
yeah,
list, a lineup of really good numbered sheep. A couple of sheep that phenotypically fit into to my preference area, but yeah, it's gonna. I think they have like 200 lots in that sale coming up here in another week and a half. So it's gonna be interesting.
that will be fun to see. Well, we're running up on our time, but I did want to say real quick the whole cedar protocol that I'm using, because I know 25 people are going to ask me 10 days with a cedar, and then 2.5 cc's of PG 600 when you pull the cedar. It's as simple as that. So I know I had tons of questions when I first started in on the cedering. So we thank you for listening, and you can reach out to me at bigtomperkins@gmail.com. There's a Facebook page, there's a YouTube channel. Go on all those, and questions and comments you can leave there as well, and like and follow and all that fun stuff. So it's been good catching up with you, Cam, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, Tom.
All right. Bye.